Hello and welcome to the American Recut. My name is Brendan.
And my name is Nick. Tonight's film is Dumbo, an adaptation of the 1941 animated classic. A young elephant, whose oversized ears enable him to fly, helps save a struggling circus, but when a circus plans a new venture, Dumbo and his friends discover dark secrets underneath its shiny veneer. Directed by Tim Burton and written by Aaron Kruger and Helen Averson.
Edit this part out, Nick. Oh, wait, I'm the one editing.
You sure are. So, Brendan, what are your thoughts on the new Dumbo movie? And before we get into anything, would you recommend seeing it in theaters?
Ooh, that's kind of hard to say. No, I would not recommend seeing it in theaters because there's elements where I do thoroughly enjoy the movie, but there's also elements where it kind of ruins it for me.
All right, and what's your overall opinion of the movie? I'll get to mine in a second. Just let's go one sentence summary for your opinion.
Nostalgic.
That's one word.
Oh, one word. You wanted a sentence. It's a nostalgic roller coaster that does still hit you in the feels, but can be hampered by the silliness that is Tim Burton.
All right, and likewise, I would say that I don't recommend this movie, but because it comes across as kind of this whitewashing of Disney. That's been this campaign they've been running for a few years now, where they try to paint themselves as simultaneously the little guy while being a massive corporation that's bordering on a monopoly. I feel like the movie is kind of dishonest in the way that it portrays things, especially Vandervelde and his Dreamland versus the apparently good guy Danny DeVito. I feel like it's a little bit dishonest as a movie, and I don't recommend seeing it, if only because if this is a vision of what live action is to be, I'm not a fan.
Indeed, it did seem to kind of push a specific agenda or portrayal, which again does hamper the movie's plot. Speaking of which, let's first get into effects. The effects, in my opinion, work. They're not incompetent, but
I would say that this is a movie where it does a unique approach to the effects and the CGI especially, where rather than trying to use CGI to cover up a character's lack of presence or to create a realistic effect, it's instead used as an artistic tool. Dumbo looks very obviously CGI, and that's on purpose. There's some scenes where they bring back songs from the original, such as the Dance of the Pink Elephants, where it's used to very good effect. Though,
it is.
Again, it's used in a weird way where I'd say that the effects are used as another element of the film. And if nothing else, the effects do work as an artistic movement, but not as like an achievement of the medium, as it were.
Yes, right.
And they are in service of the story a little bit, which, if you don't mind, I'd like to move on to the story a bit.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead.
The story for this one is significantly different from the original, if you remember the 1941 version, which mostly follows young Dumbo and has a lot of talking elephants. It has the infamous kind of racist crows. It has
the talking mouse Timothy.
Yeah, Timothy, who kind of makes a little bit of a, like, you know, a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You remember the originals kind of feature. But in general, a lot of things from the original movie are kind of used for the sake of those who remember the original. They're not generally in service to the story, which is almost completely different.
Right. The story is boilerplate safe, but it's nothing. I mean, it's so typical. You're not gonna be in awe of it, but you're more gonna be encapsulated by the effects, if anything else.
Yeah, it's not the most original story, and I would say that the story feels like it's kind of set in like the 1940s almost, like as far as like how we understood storytelling, because it's kind of an overly stupid story. Like it feels like a movie from another era in some places, where you'd say, "Oh God, that's embarrassing."
It does, yeah. And then now segueing into themes. Speaking of stupid things,
I think I want to talk a little bit more about the story before we get into spoilers. We don't have any spoilers for it, of course, but I feel like the story for this movie it's a little bit weird. You'll come across, if you watch this movie, you'll think it's a little bit of an ironic story coming from Disney. That's all I'm going to say, though. Yeah, okay, sorry. Let's go ahead and move on to the themes then.
I will agree with you on this, but before we transition to the themes, I do want to ask you one question. Does the use of human characters hamper the plot to the original film in any way?
That's right. Okay, that's worth pointing out as well. In this movie, the protagonists are primarily our human characters. The children you saw from the trailers, and oddly enough, their father, instead of actually focusing on the children much.
Right.
I would say it is not in the favor of the plot. It's not in the favor of the plot. These characters don't get enough screen time, and they come across as very basic characters. They're not interesting.
Very. Cookie cutter, formulaic, basic characters. And, they're half of the plot, and they distract from Dumbo, who is
I think they're three-quarters of a plot.
Main...
Dumbo's not even a protagonist. He doesn't show up for a while. But anyways, that's enough spoilers. Any more and we'll get into spoilers for the movie.
Good point. All right, let's move on to themes then before we ramble. Themes. So, similar to the original 1940s film, there is an issue of confidence. Dumbo has to kind of come into his own niche in some manner. And he does have a thing that kind of boosters his confidence, but...
And this movie attempts some things with themes that are a little bit interesting. Like, there's a very clear parallel between Dumbo and the one-armed father, as being outsiders, as being freaks, as being kind of shoved out of the way every time they go anywhere. There's some weird things that don't work in this movie, especially later on as we get into the different plot involving Dreamland. And
I agree.
I think that there are some themes where they're ironic coming from Disney. Ultimately, there's themes where if it was a small indie company or a small indie film, they might have a chance, but coming from Disney, it's just hilarious.
Of all things, yes, rather. It's just so weird, and it's funny that they put it in Dumbo, of all things. Anyway, with that being said, should we segue to characters, or are there any other themes?
If there's anything to say about themes, I'll talk about it in the ramble on, but as far as themes go, I think that they're ironic and funny. That's all I'll say about them.
Yeah. Characters. So, in my humblest opinion, Dumbo is darling. I'm a big marshmallow, and, just kind of seeing that little baby elephant again has triggered all kinds of emotions, both nostalgic and just sadness, really. Just, seeing that little guy struggle.
I'm not a marshmallow, and I feel like Dumbo has a problem where he's got these Dumbo's eyes, he's got these Disney eyes, he's got this Disney design, and he's even got these kind of little cute interactions where, of course, if you're a kid, you're going to say, "Mother, have you seen the elephant? I love it so." But if you're somebody who's a little bit older, you're going here to kind of look at what they've done with the movie or rehashed it, you're going to probably walk out and say, "I feel like Dumbo was a mascot in the movie that's supposed to be about him." And that's one of my biggest things, is that as far as characters go, Dumbo is not a protagonist. Dumbo's not even a character. He's a tool to be used by other characters.
Now, in my argument, you could do the same thing in the original adaptation, where he does have those Bambi eyes, those bright blue baby Bambi eyes.
Yes, but in the original, you have Timothy, the mouse, who acts as kind of the voice of Dumbo and works as kind of the second half of Dumbo. Whereas in this, Dumbo's not present for a lot of scenes, and he's not even a force who can actually do things in a lot of scenes. He's not an active force in a lot of scenes.
I'll give you that. Timothy was kind of the interpreter of Dumbo, whereas the humans in this film, who we will touch up on shortly, the humans in this film do hog a decent amount of screen time from Dumbo, who is supposed to be the main protagonist of this film.
And speaking of, the main protagonists of the film are two children, a young boy and a young girl. The young girl wants to be a scientist, and she wants to be an empowered female role, but doesn't come across quite right. There's something that's weird about her that doesn't come across as human.
Acting wise and personality wise, yeah.
I mean, like, she kind of comes across as like somebody who, like, if you're watching an older film that's supposed to be like, autism, she comes across as funny in the head, if you would use the old-timey slogan for it. But the young boy, who's supposed to be the other half of the protagonist, is barely in the film. I think he was edited out.
More like a
straight up.
sidekick or a coat.
He's kind of a sidekick, yeah. And then the other character who comes almost the real protagonist of the film is the father, who's the one-armed cowboy. But he doesn't really do anything in the movie either. And then Danny DeVito also is almost a protagonist in the film, which again, he's kind of a terrible person as a character.
If anything else, they hired Danny DeVito just so they could probably draw a bigger audience volume because
Put him on the poster.
yeah, Danny DeVito. Like, who doesn't like Danny DeVito? Sonny from Philadelphia, Matilda, all those good
But I will say, in the actor's defense, the actors for the father and, of course, Danny DeVito, to talk about Colin Farrell and Danny DeVito, they both do well in their roles, but the script is clearly not in their favor.
Right. Same with Eva Green. I enjoy her performance as well.
Eva Green, I feel like, was able to elevate the performance enough that she actually does come across as genuinely charming, to the point that she actually makes me empathize with the main villain for a while because she's by his side.
Right. No, I mean, just Colin Farrell, Danny DeVito, Michael Keaton, and Eva Green, they're good celebrities. They have impressive resumes, but this really was not their brightest moment.
No. And, child actors,
Yeah,
I
of
hate
course.
them.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place in this movie. They're constantly there. There's scenes where it's just them and Dumbo, and those scenes accomplish nothing.
I agree.
Filler,
if anything else.
Well, unless you got any other nitpicks to focus on before we get into spoilers, we'll move on to the ramble on.
I would just say, I mean, it's a good movie, but I would not see it in theaters. If you are a nostalgia fan like myself who enjoyed Dumbo when you were a kid, by all means, see it when it's not in theaters.
I don't think it's a good movie, and I don't recommend it in theaters.
All right. Well, this has been Brendan and
Nick.
Yep. Sorry. And we will see you at the Ramble On.